with us. This is our first time doing this, so we appreciate your patience.
So I think for the next time, if it drops you off, just get back on this. If it logs you out, we're not done, we'll close this out. Is that, I believe how I hear it right?
I'll let you know when we're done.
So, perfect.
Yeah.
So that's what the world of COVID has done, right? We gave a presentation this morning, and all I was concerned about was how to show and share, and it's just uncharted waters.
Yeah,
So.
for sure.
I have a question here from Austin. So how do I practice for my interview? What kinds of questions do they ask? We both work in firehouses right now. What would you say? I mean, I know there's two questions right off the top when I see someone that's a candidate trying to be a firefighter. And the biggest thing I ask somebody is, why do you want to be a Phoenix firefighter? And I actually expect an answer, right?
Yeah.
I expect a well thought out answer. Is there another question that you ask people that you?
I think it's always going to be why and what have you done to prepare?
Yep.
You know, what have you done to put you here?
I like to use the thought process of, I like to call it the bucket list, right? But you've got all these different things, and there's some considerations that we want you to think about. We talked about, why do you want to be a firefighter? What have you done to prepare? There's many aspects to being a firefighter, and I think that's the total wellness piece. We talked about Firestrong. We talked about firestrong.org, and that's that place where you can figure out, you know, Chris talked about being physically prepared. We talked about a little bit of the academy and the mental and the pressures of working, you know, critically thinking, situational awareness. But how are you, you know, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially set to do this job? The schedule makes it different. Well, it's such a great schedule. Don't you think that there's some adaptation to that 24/48 life?
Yeah, I think, you know, everybody's a little bit different on what they see in this job. You know what I mean? Like, some people maybe come from a place where they don't have they can't voice their opinion on their paying benefits, you know, or maybe they don't get holidays, maybe they don't get vacations, maybe, you know, they only get paid for the work that they do, not necessarily on like a contract, or, you know, they don't have a hourly wage, you know what I mean? I think it all depends on what you look for. Like, so I know some people that I've come across in the past, they work Monday through Sunday. Mm-hmm. So to have a day off, it just doesn't happen, you know, so they would love to have the 24/48 schedule. You know, or just they have a job where they work all night and they sleep during the day. They want to have more time with their family at home. So that's or they don't have benefits. You know, I know some people have come to this job and they've never had medical benefits, and that's a huge deal to them, right? So I think it all just depends on what you truly see in it, you know.
Yes, there's all of those things,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's the why, the what, consider the total wellness. I talked about, if you don't like people and you don't like service, it's important to recognize, right, we are a public servant agency. We serve the public. We fall under the city of Phoenix. We work, you know, with the city council, the city mayor. There's a bunch of hierarchical steps in our organization. So I think it's important to recognize, you know, how that works. What is it? What are the expectations of the public for us as public servants? Talk about, you know, be able to define professionalism. What does professionalism mean to you? And do you have examples of it in your own life? One of the things, and I found it as you talk to people and you prepare for interviews, is that some people don't think that their experience in their life matters. Right. Have you ever had that where you're like, oh, I just was a barista at Starbucks, you know, and we help them find that is the ultimate of customer service, right? Making people happy. And for us, our end product is customer service. It's how we make people feel.
That's all it is, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, even if it's like I know some people don't see it, but house fire, you know, an extrication, that is customer service, right? Like, even when we're on the house fires, you know, I know it's different from the two elements that we're in, but it's the outcome's the same, right? Our goal is to save life and save property, and it's to do that in the best way we can. So even when we're in there, we're putting out that fire and we're trying to rescue those people, but we're also being mindful of the stuff that they have, you know, because sometimes maybe people don't have homeowners insurance, you know, that's all they have. So we try to do our best to do the best customer service we can, to go above and beyond, you know, whether it's even afterwards, like placing them maybe somewhere they can stay for the night, and trying to get as much of their clothing and belongings that we can that they can still use. Yep. And I know probably being the chief, that's the things you guys are looking for too on situations like that.
Exactly. We like to call, you know, we talk about customer service, but here in Phoenix, we like to call it added value, right? Anything that we can do to make someone's day better. It doesn't matter what we say or what we did, it's really just the feeling that we leave them with. And so it's all these little things that come into play. And so if you can think of your own personal examples that you can share, so not only are you telling us that you're a professional and you're committed, but you have some really good at personal examples that allow us to get to know you, because that's an important piece, right? We sit on your interview board and we want to know, who's sitting on the other side. We've got 20 minutes. It's your stage. You got to sell yourself to us. Pretty much you got to sit there for 20 minutes, and we got to learn and get that feeling that you're really an awesome person for our organization.
Yeah, and I think that leads us into the next question that we have, which was, how could I get involved in the fire service and volunteer? And I think, like we said before, our recruitment packet, if you guys haven't gotten that before, our website, get on the recruitment packet. There's a bunch of different ways you can get involved, such as the cadet program, Emerald Society, Valley Women's, Bomberos, all these different affinity groups that you can get involved with, or multiple at one time, get involved with as many or as little as you want. And then also too with the local, you can go to the local page. We have all different types of events that we do constantly. And then, too, also just being around any friends or family you have in the fire service, taking classes, those are all good ways to get involved. Do you have any other things I haven't really touched on? Or?
No, I would say, COVID has its challenges now, right? We just can't have, we just haven't lifted any restrictions to have people inside of our fire stations. And oftentimes people don't have access to affinity groups, but I really think it's important to kind of define the affinity group side of it, right? If you look up the word affinity group, it's just a group with a common theme with a common goal. And so these affinity groups do all of the things and provide everything that we've talked about today, from opportunity to volunteer, have conversations with firefighters, learning our culture, volunteering, interview prep, physical prep. It's just a way in. However, you do not have to belong to affinity group to be hired. Not at all. It's just an option to try to figure out. Oftentimes, you find yourself going, now what? And that's kind of what we're here today, just try to, propel you forward and give you some different ideas of where to go in the process.
Yeah, I know when I was getting hired, the affinity groups aren't what they were now, right? I mean, they do a lot more. They're a lot more involved now with the community and volunteering. It was one of those things where you kind of just, I know some guys I got hired with were just, would knock on doors or call fire stations just to see what they can do. I think there's more avenues you can do to go down now, but I don't think there's really a right or wrong answer. It's just getting involved, just.
And I feel like everybody knows a firefighter somewhere, and usually if you know a firefighter, you can ask if they know another firefighter, and if you tell people that you're trying to be hired with, a certain city, usually you can kind of find a plug-in somewhere, and maybe you don't get to go right at their station because you can't right now, but if Chris would give you 5 minutes on the phone, he could talk about some of the things and give you a couple helpful hints, because I think that's an important piece too, right? To figure out all the different stages in our career. I'd like to throw that back to the interview piece too, right? It's important to understand what the academy's about and what are the things that you can do to be successful in the academy and how you can protect your reputation. Those are a couple different questions I would consider for the interview prep as well.
Yeah, and I think that's brings us to our next question, Rita, and I think you can answer this too, is what are the requirements to become a firefighter? You want to speak on that for a little bit?
Well, so you have to be 18 years old to take the written test, right? We just had our written test, but you do have to have your EMT and you have to have your CPAT. However, you don't have to have and be able to show proof of those until you reach your second round interview. At that point, you've got to be able to show that you've passed your EMT and your national registry if it's the first time that you're taking it. For those of you that have your EMT and you're up for renewal, make sure that you renew it. Don't let it lapse, so you have to go through the whole class again. That can be super difficult. If you've taken your EMT and you might find that you're out there struggling with the national registry part of it, you're not alone. That's a common thing. A lot of time that national registry piece doesn't exactly match what we do on the streets. It's very by the book and it's very chronological, so I just want you to know that you're not alone. Like, it can be a very challenging process. And then of course the CPAT, that thing expires every 6 months. So oftentimes we'll see people try to be strategic, right? They wait till they got an interview and they're trying to be strategic as to when to take that next CPAT test to keep it current. I would just be careful, especially with COVID. We've had a lot of places not open back up and do CPAT testing.
Yeah, and there's really not a whole lot we can do. Even if you have it scheduled and you have your second round interview, I make sure you get that done before you get that second. We don't think we can stress that part enough.
So really quick, let's have a quick conversation on the CPAT, because you really only see it in the very beginning of your career, right? You just have to have it to be hired, but we don't revisit it again, right? It's not required.
Right.
Do you know, you wanna just go back and forth on some of all the different events on it? We might get these out of order, but.
Yeah, it's some, you don't know, like, so the sledgehammer, that's one that you'll do on this job, you'll swing a sledgehammer at some point on this job for different various reasons, extrication or for, maybe you're in the fire and you're trying to blow down a wall, whatever it may be. We've even used them to actually help with patients getting them out of certain areas, swinging that sledgehammer, so, and then, what do you want to go to the next one?
Stair stepper,
Yeah.
right? The infamous stair stepper with the weighted vest. So if you think about, our turnout gear is about approximately 50 pounds with your boots. And then you put your SCBA on, which is self-contained breathing apparatus, goes on your back. That's another 25 pounds. So you wear a vest throughout the entire CPAT and you get on the stair stepper. The trick to it is that you have to walk really, really slow so that it burns your legs out, right? And it has this really slow pace that you might just want to cruise along. And then they throw these weights on your shoulder as well while you're on there. Can't touch the rails. So if you're training, it's a really good idea. Hiking mountains with weighted backpacks, weighted vests. I think that's the most challenging thing that I've seen people that come into the fire service is that they can do a lot of things in their regular clothes, but you put turnouts that start to restrict your movement, and then you put some weight on your back, and it really impedes your ability to move. So you got the stair stepper with the weighted vest.
We have the blind crawl through, so that simulation, be like being in a fire. There's sometimes you do have to get on the ground and crawl yourself to do a search and rescue, or maybe just find your way back out. That is something that we do have to do. That I would say is again, getting comfortable, being uncomfortable.
Well, and if you're claustrophobic, what
Yeah.
you find that's the place you kind of figure out that you don't actually like to be in tight confined spaces that you can't see.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you gotta raise a ladder.
Yep, raise the ladder, and then lower the ladder.
Raise and lower the
Obviously,
ladder.
I think those are self-explanatory. If we gotta get to a roof, that's what we have to do.
Mhm.
Also too, we have you pull a hose line, you run a hose line out. I think again,
Yep.
that's pretty self-explanatory. We're gonna do that in the academy a lot.
And then you get on one knee and you
Yep,
reel it in,
hand over
right?
hand, yep.
Yep, hand over hand. We got the pike pole prop.
Back pull prop, yep.
Yep.
So simulating pull and ceiling. We have to sometimes check to make sure that the fire's not above us. So that's something that I guarantee you'll do on fire, and you're gonna do a lot in the academy and in pre-academy. So a lot of these things you'll actually will do in pre-academy.
And then lastly, we do the equipment carry, right?
Yep,
You gotta
equipment
carry
carry.
the saws. That simulates being on a ladder, that you would get those pieces of equipment off the truck, take them to the base of a ladder and go up.
Yep.
And oftentimes we were talking about, one of the things you'll hear us talk a lot about, or firefighters talk about, is skills courses,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Set up behind every fire station. I mean, you guys do this all the time at Station 33, don't you?
Yeah, we do it probably at least once a week, if not every shift.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like I keep saying this, but being uncomfortable, it's the turnouts, if you play sports or you've been in the military and you had to first put on your pack or your gear, it's kind of uncomfortable in the beginning. And the more and more you do it, kind of the easier it does get. Like sometimes it still is hard, it's not easy work, but you do get more comfortable doing that. I think the more you do it, the better it gets, don't you think?
Yeah, we kind of have this, this joke about, why are tires behind a fire station, and they've got this, the hose that's attached to it, but the reality is if you were hand jacking a line, if you were taking supply line off a truck, it's what we can simulate with
Mhm.
behind our fire stations,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I say this to a lot of people that we train, and all the recruits that we go talk to, is we train you to be in that uncomfortable position, right? So you've been running calls all day. It's June or July in Arizona. You're at the station 33, 18, 7, all the other states. Everyone's getting busier, but you're running calls all day, right? You run 12, 15 calls all day. You get a fire at 2 in the morning. You're on that fire from 2 to 6. Does Mr. and Mrs. Smith know that you've been exhausted and tired and running calls all day? They have no idea, right? They think that you're fresh and ready to go and that you're ready to help them with their house fire. So you have to fight that fire, overhaul, save their stuff, right? And then you go back to work, and then you can turn on, you could run a code right after that, and you got to be in shape for that as well, right? So it's being able to do that for the next 25 to 30 years. You really need to understand that is what we're preparing you for.
And I'm gonna go so far to kind of piggyback on that, and that's why you have to have a good total wellness plan, right? That's why there's that physically fit side of it, but then it's a mental grind, right? You
Right.
spend hours and hours on the 6 alarm fire, well, you don't get to go home.
Right.
Work is not done, you've got, like you said, you gotta go save Mrs. Smith, so there's that mental side of it too.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that's actually the more harder part. I think your body can actually push yourself to farther than you think. It's being able to know in your head what you can and can't do. You know, it's been able to have that total wellness that you're talking about. I think that's more important than even the more physical side. Don't you agree?
I would totally agree, especially because all of the elements start to stack up on you, right? From sleep deprivation. Here, this is actually a really good question for you. Is it harder to get up at work for all your calls, or is it harder to get up with your new baby at home?
Dogs work for all the calls.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
You can hold her and you can just nod back out and
Yeah.
go to sleep.
I can't do that at work.
Right.
Yeah.
But but the wear and tear of sleep deprivation, I mean, those are really real things that you gotta have a good total wellness
Yeah.
plan. And you're really, the more you can come into this with living the lifestyle that matches what we do, the more successful you will be.
Yeah.
Because this can take a toll.
And I think too, the support system you have at home,
Yep.
you know, so like if you've been you know, those of you that get hired on, you go to the booter stations, most booter stations are pretty busy. You go for 24 hours, well, you got life at home in the next 48, right? So having that family support, you know, to be able to, you know, tell them what you went through and them supporting you and being, hey man, maybe you do need some rest or whatever it may be, that having that family support is huge.
You know, I think that one of the challenging things with being hired as a firefighter, possibly no matter with whatever city you're testing for, is it can be lengthy. It can be drawn out, right? It can feel like, how long is this going to take? And it's really hard. One of the things that our HR department never wants to do is push out dates that we think will change. And so they tend to keep that stuff pretty close to the chest until it's really official. But this can be a little bit of a lengthy process, and we encourage you just to stay after it. It is absolutely worth every bit of effort. I mean, is there a day that you ever regret not pursuing this profession?
I say this, you know, I haven't had a job in 9 years. I look at that because like this is my career. I look forward to going to work. I look forward to being with the people that I work with. It truly is fun. It is, and it's what you make it. You know, like this is something I want to do, and I think you can speak on this too. Like I can't believe I have 9 years on. There's a couple captains sitting back here that when I got on, they were firefighters, and now they're captains, and I'm pretty sure they both would say the same thing. You know, that the time just flies. The next thing you know, you're thinking about retirement or whatever it is. You know, and how many careers do you have that where it just flies by like that? I think
Yep.
this is one of those few ones that does.
Yeah, very happy to go to work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, well, love it.
And I always like the term that some people will coin. They talk about like we're industrial athletes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I love your analogy. If you don't mind sharing it, you kind of talk about the Super Bowl, right? They know when the
Yeah.
Super Bowl is, but we don't.
So I used to say that the New England Patriots, where I would compare the Patriots, but now I use the Chiefs, because obviously the Patriots aren't the same anymore, but jokingly, but the Chiefs, right, they know when their Super Bowl is. They know in February that they're gonna go to the Super Bowl, so they start preparing for that at a certain time, and they get ready throughout the year, and they prepare for that Super Bowl call. We're a little different. We are industrial athletes. We do have to prepare, we have to train, we have to know exactly what we're doing in order to be safe and go home. We don't know when our Super Bowl call is gonna come, but I guarantee you, once a year, you're going to get challenged physically and mentally to a point where you're gonna have to push yourself. And you're gonna have to know your job, just like a professional athlete, because again, Mr. and Mrs. Smith want you to know exactly how to use every tool on that truck, and they want you to solve their problem, because we can't call anybody else. You know, we don't call the National Guard, we're it, right? People call us and we have to show up, so you're gonna have that Super Bowl call, but you have to be prepared 24/7, 365, because you don't know when it's gonna come.
You know, we've talked a lot about, the physicality and the fire side of our job, but we'd be remiss not to speak to, we run a lot of medical calls, and the same way we talk about being physically prepared, this is also really being at the top of your game, right? You get a drowning that pops out, at 6 in the morning, and you're doing pediatric numbers on your glove trying to figure out, and you just gotta be sharp, and you've gotta be with it. So this kind of goes back to that whole mental training as well. There's an emotional side to this. And so all of the reasons that we talk about total wellness, it's an important piece. You gotta be ready to respond. So, well, I think, have we covered everything we can think of? We'll think of more when we get off the air.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, I think we covered a ton, and, if you guys have questions there at home, like Rita said, just shoot us an email, and we'll try to figure out what we'll get you an answer.
recruitment.pfd@phoenix.gov is the email that you can send your questions to, or social media. We always, you can follow us close on social media. hopefully you noticed we were doing a pretty good job of trending our recruitment efforts, and we will continue to do so. And so, if you're seeking information and you have ideas, please feel free to ask. The one thing we want you to have is information, and we hope that's what you got from spending an hour with us, or spending some time with us
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
So, thank you very
thank you.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
Yeah, thank you guys.